Alright, it's Tuesday now. I went and did a little volunteering at the theater yesterday, and so didn't grab any film of that because that was kind of an early start, and I didn't grab the camera. So sorry about that, but moving on to this next room, that wall right behind me is going to get redone, get a new window. Still has the old window, still is not insulated, so that is the next on the list, and I created a little list for the store, and now I'm off to go buy the supplies. Alright, I'm here at Gilman Home Center. This is where I like to buy the sheetrock and the insulation, and the good news is I have a 10% off coupon. Yeah. So here it is. If you can see it there, that's where we're going. I'm gonna go get this ordered up. Alright, time to go around to the yard and pick this stuff up. I got my little yard ticket here and everything, ready to go. There's the yard we're going to. Alright, all loaded up. We got sheetrock, insulation, furring strips. Didn't take too long, but I gotta go back to the main office because they gave me the wrong thing on the ticket, but we figured it out. So I got the right stuff now. Alright, and we're off. Goodbye, Gilman. Thanks for the service. Time to go home. Well, it's such a nice day, I decided to stop and take a little look at the park. This park's got a bunch of old buildings. Let's go check them out. We have cabin number 5. Got some really cool old school log cabins here. I want to point out too that they also have some really neat authentic bricks. Anybody's into bricks, appreciate that. Canton, Ohio it looks like. So yeah, this is a traditional log cabin for sure, although they've replaced the mud with concrete, it looks like, between the logs. And they added this modern overhang, but all in all, pretty cool old cabin. Here's an old coal chimney. Looks like we still have a coal fire in there if we wanted. And here's the back side. You know, could be kept up a little better, but pretty cool. And there's a bunch of them. For that chimney. Pretty cool. So. Cabin number 4, similar to the first, but cabin number, I think this is 2 here, is built very differently. You'll see that the logs are not round. They're actually squared off. So maybe a little more modern, maybe not. I don't know. What do you think? Here's something you don't see very often anymore. Remember these? I thought they took most of them out. Still got one here. Go Indiana. Now it's time to swing. So, anyone else out there who enjoys to swing still, even though you're not a kid anymore? I do. What's a good park in America without a good canyon? This one was dedicated. Woo. Fire there. Plenty of open space in this park though. Plenty of open space. Time to come run and have fun. And we're done. We gotta go home now. We'll get to work. Get to work. Alright, we're home again. We got the van parked in the loading dock. Still have my little setup here. See if we can get a shot of it. There it is. Still got my little setup parked right on it. Alright, it's time to break into the next phase of the project. We got our sheetrock. We're doing the exterior wall here. I'm going to tear off the trim and the paneling and going to replace this window. And the whole goal here really is to replace the window and get this here insulation into the wall. We're going to start with the trim. Alright, I should have all the tools I need here. And so to start, I'm looking at this floor trim. That side over there is locked in behind the other trim, so I can't start there. And it is locked in behind this trim here. So I have to start with this piece. Okay, well first I'm going to remove this corner strip to get it out of the way. And then I'm going to remove that bottom piece. Now it's actually locked in behind this block. So we're going to start with the corner trim and then this block and then this long piece. Then I can take that piece. So in order to remove this, I'm going to start with this solid scraper behind the trim and start pulling it out. Find the nails, and we can just pull the nails right out like so. And before you know it, we're loose, coming off the wall. Pretty easy, actually. Just be careful not to break it. You see it kind of trying to crack there. I don't know if you can see that, but you're trying careful not to break it. And there it is. Similar method for the corner block. Once we get it moving like that, switch over to the pry bar. There we go. Now I can move on to this long trim. It's already pulled out. I don't really need the crowbar. I do have to be careful not to break these. They do like to break on me, so we've got it quite a ways down. I'm going to go to the other side of the sheetrock and work it from that end. Managed to get my pry bar in here. Again, careful not to break it. This one's coming off pretty nicely. There it is. Free. As I remove this trim, I'm going to take it down into the basement so that I can clean all the nails off. Now I'm going to continue on, take that corner trim and then this bottom trim. Now that that's out of the way, moving on to the window, take down these curtains real quick and then I'm going to hit the window frame. So I'm going to take off all the random hardware that's on this window frame first, and then you'll see that when we put the air conditioner in, this piece here got really blown out. I've got a bunch of screws in it. I got to take all those out. And then I can pull this window frame off the wall. Okay, all the hardware's out of the way. I'm going to use a similar method, although I think I'm going to get a knife and I'm going to cut this seam first. Anywhere the trim's cocked on the wall like this, I'm going to use a knife and I'm just going to cut the caulk like so, so that it doesn't break the wood. Alright, now that line's been scored, I should be able to get my tool in, and that'll give me just enough room to get the pry bar in without damaging the wood, because we don't want to damage the wood. Get in fairly deep, set that aside. Now I can pry from inside the wood so I'm not damaging the edge. If I see nails exposed to like this, I can go ahead and pull them. Makes my life a little easier. And then we can continue on the same process here. Again, I don't want to break it, so we're going to chase it up. See a few cracks forming up here, so we're going to chase it up here. Okay, I think I'm going to need 2 hands for this. Alright, it's coming off now. The other side. Now that both sides are removed, I got a step ladder out and I'm going to tackle the top. looks like I need to cut that one too. Now I'm going to deploy the same method here. Some fastener coming through. I can pull that one. All right, here it comes. It's getting loose. We are super close. Angle here. And last but not least, this bottom board, which is all rotted out, so I think it's probably all going to get replaced, so I don't really care about it. Wow. Yeah, it's barely hanging on there. Now that window trim has all been removed. Next, we're going to look at removing the top trim. Okay, looking at this top trim, I see we've got a union right here at a 45, which means I can take this one on the outside first. So I'm going to go ahead and start here. And pretty easy to remove, except maybe the corner. Can we get it? Prefer to pull that other one later, so if I can get this out of here, yeah, bam, there we go. There's some of them little jerks hiding out. That's why we caulking everything when we're done. Get rid of these little suckers. All right, I'm going to take this piece off and then I'm done removing trim for this wall. Well, it's surprisingly less moldy than the other ones, but you can see where we've got mold underneath the windows growing, and that's another big reason we're doing this project. Get that out of here, get everything dried up, and mold free. So next, I'm going to take this paneling off the wall. So I don't care about this paneling, so I can just kind of tear into it and rip it off the wall. Like so. So I'm just going to go through and pop all these nails and just going to tear this right off the wall. Alright, now that all that paneling's gone, I'm going to load it into the van for now for storage. Alright, got all that paneling out of here. The next step here is to remove this stucco rock stuff from the wall, the plaster, and that is a very dusty process. So I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup and then I'm going to hang a bunch of plastic to control the dust. I'll show you the result when I'm done. Alright, things are coming along. I got the first bit of plastic up. I'm to the corner here, and in order to attack this room, I think I need to build a frame. So I'm going to try and plastic straight through there. And in order to do it, I'm going to use these furring strips I got. I bought them because if you look at the ceiling height here, and the ceiling height is quite a bit less here, and I want them to match. So I got just enough with the 2x2 furring strip. It's going to drop the ceiling on this side, so be even with that. So I might as well use them for a frame because that frame is going to have to move before we do the ceiling. This is just to control the dust from that wall coming down. Okay, so now that I thought about it, I need to take the blades off the fan, and then I'm going to attach a top rod to 2 side rods, well, 3 side rods in total. And then I'm going to screw them on the ends of the long ones, about 1 inch off the floor, and coat it with plastic. These come off pretty easy. We just need a Phillips screwdriver and take the little screws out. They sure are dirty, aren't they? On second thought, I'm just going to take them here, get rid of the whole arm and blade all together. And then while you're doing this, you want to take every other arm. So I'm going to take this one next, so as not to get way out of balance. And this time, I'm going to use the drill. And would you know it, the drill made this much quicker and much easier. So there goes 1, 2,
and pretty soon we'll get number 3, and I am so glad to get this dusty mess out of our living space. This is the last dusty fan. And we're going to move on to the frame. This was a little different, ended up a little different than I thought it would, so I'm screwing it together now. And then I had a little trouble lifting it because guess what? It's taller than I am. And, you know, eventually we worked it out, not without a mess. One screw in the ceiling held it, and so I'm gonna go ahead and panel the rest of this run, and I'm just gonna screw it to the ceiling like that, and then I'll put one more panel in here. Well, it's getting close. Just have a few more seams to tape up. And we're gonna have a wall of plastic, and then in here, we can do our work on the wall. Sneaky keeky. And there it is, screwed to the ceiling, all taped up. This is my entrance with the arrow. And we got us a sealed up room. So tomorrow we'll be tearing into this wall. Yum. Alright everyone, we're here. We're all sealed in all the way around. And I've got them all tooled up. So I've got my good old hammer, drill, a couple extra tools in case I need them. Somewhere around here I got the pry bar and getting the camera set up. So I am about ready to start smashing these walls down. Yeah. And when you're doing this, don't forget your PPE, good respirator and goggles, or maybe a 2-in-1. The hat helps keep the hair clean, and it's kind of noisy, so we might as well put a podcast on and the old headsands and go to town. It's pretty easy actually. I'm somewhat ambidextrous, so I switch hands, keeps me from getting too worn out. But I just break it up with the hammer and knock it off with the pry bar. If you guys got a better way of doing this, let me know. I'm sure I could use, I don't know, jackhammer? I don't know, what do you guys think? Anyways, I got one more wall to go after this room, so you know, if anyone's got any good recommendations for me, I'm always open to suggestions. So I thought I'd give you this little example in this section, and then I'm going to move on to time-lapse mode for the rest of the wall. Goes pretty quick, especially in time-lapse mode. You can see the dust flying. This is a pretty dusty process. All right, step 1 done. Got all the rock off the wall, and it is on the floor. Big mess. So now it's time for some cleanup. I'm going to use a coal shovel and shovel it into some boxes. And I do find this a pretty effective way of cleanup. And next stage is to take off the slats. I am going to reuse the slats and put them back on the wall. Alright everyone, I'm still recovering a little from a head cold. You can probably hear it, but I got to get to work here. And so I've got all of the slats off the walls. I got a little bit of cleanup to do, and then I'm going to go ahead and start prepping these walls for insulation. Look at that, we got some roots coming out of the walls I got to clean up. Yep, so that's what I'm doing today. As soon as I can, I'll get this insulated. This insulation goes in pretty easy. This is the staple free still. Best stuff I can get for the 2x4 wall, and hope you enjoyed the episode.